Hello, and welcome back to Tai'Shar Netherin Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
We're continuing the slog through Crown of Swords. We're nearing the end. We have this episode and one more to go. So yeah, we're getting into some good stuff here. Good parts of the slog, I would say.
Yeah, these chapters are the best chapters of this book, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So Will's gonna lead us on this one, and so take it away whenever you're ready, my man.
All right, we're in chapter 30, The First Cup, which I rated a read. Actually, this is the largest percentage of read chapters in this episode.
Oh, yeah. This one and the next one both are, yeah. Generally, the message is skip if you're going to skim and or skip to these chapters and then read.
Right. Yes. In general, you do better reading from here on out. These are going to be, really just because you're getting down to the nitty gritty of the plot at this point. So here we are, chapter 30, The First Cup. Elaine is surprised to find that Marililla and the other Aes Sedai that had accompanied Nynaeve and Elaine to Abu Dar are upset with the news that Elaine has brought. Yes, indeed, it seems likely that she has found the Bull of the Winds, but apparently discovering/exposing the kin is a no-no.
The horror, even though she didn't know.
Right, exactly. They couldn't know that since she and Nynaeve didn't even know the kin existed.
Right.
So the other women are treating Elaine as if she were on trial, going as far as to infer Elaine hasn't been properly raised.
Right. She's really just an uppity accepted.
Exactly. So they start to pass official judgment on Elaine, and as they're lecturing her. And out of nowhere, a maid who has a name, but who cares, enters and gives Elaine a letter from Jacob Carradine, who claims that Morghese is alive and in the care of the White Cloaks, and he'll be glad to escort her safely to see her mother. Elaine believes this all to be lies, so this just makes her angry. And she sets the letter on fire with the power. So it's funny because, of course, Jacob Carradine, not known for his veracity, is actually telling the truth in this particular moment.
You're right. It's kind of a weird play for dark friend White Cloak, but you can kind of see how he got there. Like, hey, listen, this is truth.
Right.
I'm a questioner. The questers for truth, quote speakers for what's the real name?
The hand of the light or something like that.
Yeah. Just questioners. Yeah. But I don't know where I was getting truth. Anyway, sort of truth. Terry Goodkind. I don't know. I'm just babbling at this point.
More like Terry Badkind, rest his soul.
Yeah, rip.
Marililla tries to scold her for channeling to set the thing on fire without permission, but Elaine
ain't having none of it.
Yes, she is over it, and she uses the quote-unquote voice of command to tell them that not only is she Aes Sedai, she's being accused of exposing a secret she wasn't even told about.
Right. So what's stern school teacher like Dr. Jekyll and Queen Trakand here.
And what's more, she is actually the one in charge, according to the Amerlin seat. And Marililla balks at that first, but after Elaine continues to shut her up, the woman finally concedes that indeed Elaine is not only in charge according to the Amerlin, but also she's the most powerful woman in the room.
Right. So, like, by all accounts, she should be in charge. She just hadn't realized it until now.
So, according to tradition, everybody should defer to her regardless. Elaine asks for them to explain who or what the kin are. And this is actually the point at which it finally does get explained to us, even though we've had 2 chapters, including one called The Kin, which I believe you rated a skip despite being a fan of The Kin.
I did, because the content did not match the title.
Well, and you also gave me a hard time about the episode before for saying, hey, like I was saying just, hey, skim the one before.
Yeah.
Essentially, I actually called it a read-ish because I was saying like, hey, skim the first bit. But here's the thing. This is actually the point at which we finally find out what the kin are.
Right.
So
pretty interesting stuff. This is something that like we've been wanting to know, as a first-time reader, you're like, okay, somebody needs to explain what's happening here.
Exactly.
We finally get it.
which is why this is a read. So it turns out that the kin are known to the White Tower and even used by them to help
they
keep...
find runaways.
Exactly. They keep track of wilders and runaways. And the kin themselves don't even know that the tower know of them, let alone that they're keeping track of them so that they can use them to keep tabs on women.
They know the White Tower thinks it knows a lot about the kin, and as we find out very soon, they know less than they think.
Right. So, I mean, mainly they're just using them as a network to try to make sure and track down runaways. And that has been a successful use. It's clear that the other Aes Sedai think that the kin are a relatively small group. Like you're saying, they don't know really the depth.
They don't understand the full extent of what they're dealing with in any way.
Exactly. Elaine seems to think that there are more of them than the tower realizes, and after this, and the other, all the other women apologize and agree to help Elaine with whatever she wants to do.
It's sort of jarring, a bit whiplash. Like they're all at first they're like scolding her and like we should just treat her like an accepted, and then she like gets mad and tells Marililla off, and then they're all like, oh shoot, oh yeah, she is the strongest in the room. Then they all kind of like fall in line, and it's kind of strange.
Yeah, Marililla even says something about that, like, "Hey, you know, this is kind of how Aes Sedai work. We kind of are like, you know, catty to one another and even argue. But once it's like, hey, this person's in charge and this is what we're doing, we fall in line pretty well."
Yeah.
The next little section is a Mogedian perspective. She is in Ebu Dar now and is still obsessed with stopping Nynaeve. So she's spying on her from a rooftop, watching her board a boat, and she attempts to balefire it. But she's startled by some nearby pigeons. Which is kind of a funny image to me. You know, it causes her to miss slightly. She was going for the cabin where Nynaeve was sitting, and instead she hits the middle of the boat,
slices it in half.
So yeah, it starts to sink because it's broken in half. But now Mogedian's like, oh crap, somebody is gonna see that I just channeled. I better get out of here. So she runs back to her coach, Leroy Jenkins, it out of there. So anyway,
so we're all very concerned about Nynaeve, understandably at this point.
Right. Yes. So we're all we know is that, you know, she's in a boat that just got half bale-fired. So
right. The middle hasn't existed for, you know, has never existed for a few seconds or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's a good way of putting it. The middle never existed, at least for the last few seconds.
It's very confusing.
They even explain that because she bale-fired the oarmen, that the boat moved back.
Well, yeah, moved back however many yards from where they would have been rowing. I guess it's like it was not being rowed.
Yeah, exactly. So then we go to chapter 31, Mashiara. And I put this one as a read also.
Heck yeah, this is a good one. This is some final payoff we've been looking for a while.
And there's some stuff at the beginning of this that seems slow and a little sluggish, but read it. Yeah, I'd say just go ahead and read it. Something really important happens at the ending.
Yes.
So we step back a few minutes to Nynaeve as she's getting on the boat we just heard about, and she's on her way to meet Nesta Denrius, Two Moons, Akimbo, Shamalama Ding Dong, and she's none too happy about getting this assignment, thinking that Elaine has the easier job of reporting to the other Aes Sedai.
Right.
Little does she know. After she's been complaining about this for a while, a long while, a good long while, a minute, as the kids say, this goes on for straight up too long. Okay, like especially since we know what's about to happen, we're just like, okay, all right, get to it. All right,
you're right.
You know, which forgetting what comes at the end of this, I almost was like, maybe this is a skip chapter, and then
I forgot what it was at the very end or something.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they waited until the end of the next chapter to do it.
Right. But then finally, Mogedian's balefire strikes and the ship begins to sink. And she's trapped in a pocket of air in the cabin, and she begins to struggle to get out of the cabin.
Uh-huh.
and she realizes
She's not angry. Uh-oh.
yeah, she can't channel because she's not angry. She tries to force the door open, but the door is actually on the bottom of the riverbed, so there's no way she is getting out that way. And she's just panicked. She can't do anything, and so she begins to basically accept death, like,
Drowning. Yep.
I'm just gonna die now. And that's when it finally happens.
She surrenders to Saidar.
As the text puts it, with hope gone, flickering on the edge of consciousness like a guttering candle flame, she did something she had never done before. She surrendered completely, and Saidar filled her. And so we're like, yeah!
Finally! This has been a long time coming.
Yes. She breaks free of the ship, and though she's actually losing consciousness, because, of course, she was running out of air.
Before you get to the next part, I did want to say one more thing about this. This scene got me thinking that really she's always sort of approached channeling like a man a bit. Like it's Saidin, you always hear them talking about seizing Saidin.
Right.
And like, the anger like allows her to see Saidar. And it's like later there's a scene where, not spoiling anything. I don't know. I don't think this is a spoiler. There is a scene in which, through various circumstances, a man channels Saidar. That doesn't give away anything, would you say? I don't know if you feel I think it's general enough. And that man tries to approach it like Saidin, and it like feels like he could get burned out and realizes he has to surrender. And so it's like this reminds me of that scene. Like there's this, there's such a different approach, and it almost seems like she's always approached channeling like a man would. And it doesn't work for Saidar, and it took her almost, drowning to come to terms with that.
Right. I think that's a good point. We talk about with Saidar, you have to open yourself to it and then surrender. Saidin,
not traits that Nynaeve has generally been known for, I would say, to this point.
Yeah, so it does take a near-death experience for her to come to it. So yes, finally being faced with her own mortality, she is able to let go completely. Though after she breaks free of the ship, she is losing consciousness when somebody grabs hold of her, and pulls her up to the surface and into another boat. And she
punches them in the face or kicks them in the face.
she throws up after she, because she's, of course, she's full of water and everything. And so she starts to recognize the voices around her. Somewhere here, she realizes that one of the voices is Lan's. And despite being rescued, this is truly her worst nightmare.
Right, because she's like a drowned rat and she just
exactly. Which is a funny image of her like being, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen.
Right. You almost just drowned, lady. Like, get some perspective.
She quickly dries herself using the power. Again, funny image. I hope they include these times because this happens several times where women quickly fix their appearance with the power.
Right.
Despite their strength and independence, they all still like to look nice.
Oh, yeah.
And so after she embraces Lan, or rather, I love the way the text says, someone giggles. or giggled.
Surely not me.
Yes. Surely Nynaeve does not giggle. So they go into Oat's cabin where Lan explains that Morel, not to be confused with Marililla.
Yes, true.
Which, as you say it, they sound different enough, but the way that they're written is actually very similar. Very similar. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Morel now holds his bond. And of course, Nynaeve calmly asks how this happened and what she needs to do to take the bond. And I'm just kidding.
She beats the heck out of him again.
Of course, she screams and curses Lan and repeatedly slaps him.
And he just takes it. He just is like, okay, hit me again.
Lan says it's actually good that they're not bonded, as he's just going to die, and it'll just make things worse for her.
She says, challenge accepted. No, you are not.
And this is where he calls her his Mashiara. Hey, that's the title of the chapter, which means his loft love, presumably in the old tongue, though it doesn't actually specify, and it's not clear why Nynaeve would know this phrase, but oh well. Elaine explains that he's on loan from Morel until Nynaeve can find a proper warder, and Nynaeve is like, well, okay, that's better than nothing. She says, I found him, by the way, because Morel will give
You are
bond.
him.
Yeah. And let's hear no more about it.
Right.
And
also, we're going to get married, and you're going to like it.
We're going to get married today.
Right.
He starts to argue, but she gags him with Saidar. This is the kind of romantic exchange that makes me think these kids will be just fine.
Yeah.
I don't know much about relationships, but this all seems like normal and healthy behavior for two people who respect each other's autonomy and are looking to foster good communication.
I know if my wife had magical powers and could just gag me with air whenever she wanted to, that would probably be a good thing for our relationship.
Anyway, after she says, we're going to get married no matter what you say, Lan reminds her that his bond with Morel will allow Morel to feel whatever he does, including a ...
Right.
And Nynaeve suddenly gets it, is embarrassed. I'm reminded of the moment in Scott Pilgrim where it's like no clue, gets it, like cha-ching in his head. And she's embarrassed at first, but then she decides to lean into it and says,
just like, that's just fine.
She's like, is there any way for her to be to make sure that she knows it's me that you're with?
We're going to go to her, into her tent.
And she's still like, let's get married. Lan wants them to stay on shore since he has correctly surmised that it was Mo Gideon who bail-fired her boat. As she says that she needs to continue to her meeting with the sea folk, she realizes that she channeled without being angry and happily tells Lan that her block must be gone. Before heading to the Nesta meeting, she asks if anyone has a comb. So
can't comb with the power, I guess, is the
right.
takeover.
Yeah. You can dry everything, but
maybe you could have a Terangriel that like perfectly combs in one try, or I don't know.
Oh yeah. I feel like that probably exists, and it's just not, it's just so
it's not such an important piece that it's in the books. I mean, I could see it being in the slog, but somehow it didn't make it in.
So the next subchapter is in Elaine's head. This is an especially satisfying antecedent to the first episode with the kin.
Elaine, it just kind of like bookends the interaction, reverses the power structure. Yeah.
Elaine takes the other Aes Sedai back to the kin's hideout, where they confirm that not only is Elaine Aes Sedai, she's in charge of the Aes Sedai group that they heard about who are staying at the palace. The one that they threatened her with?
Mm-hmm. Here they
are. When she walks in with the other women, the knitting circle is afraid, and there's a funny scene wherein the kin are all afraid to even speak when they enter, and Elaine thinks about saying boo to them. So Elaine gets to it right away and asks about the bowel of the winds, and then Rihanna starts to deny any knowledge of such things and says something about their few friends in the knitting circle, and Elaine begins to explain that the tower knows about the kin. On Egwene's behalf, offers them to return to the tower if Rihanna and the others want to be sheltered under their umbrella. Ella. That's the Rihanna reference for this episode. All right. The women all become emotional, and they are clearly very on board.
Would like that, yes.
Yeah. The other Aes Sedai ask how many of the kin there are that might actually return to the tower. And turns out there are 1,783 women on the roll of the kin.
The Aes Sedai say, do what now?
That's nearly twice as many as there are Aes Sedai. So Elaine is like, well, that's awesome.
Right.
Okay, but back to the Bowel of the Winds. Rihanna starts to tell them about Cache of Terangrial. Yes, finally, we're going to find out where the stupid thing is after...
Enough of this place. Let's get out of here.
Entire book. Again, I'm just kidding. There's a scream from downstairs, and
right.
Birgitte pulls out her dagger and goes to face the door. As the women fill themselves with Saidar, when the door opens and
Matt Cawthon
just saunters in to explain he found a storeroom.
Let's get out of here.
In the Rahad, where the Bowel of the Winds probably is. At first, Elaine tells Matt that she had just figured that out But then she feels some disapproval from Birgitta, who's like, hey, he did find it.
Right,
You ask him to.
You still have toe.
Right. And then, so she apologizes and thanks Matt for finding it. I feel like I should pause here and explain what the Rahad is, because it's
not super clear. Yeah. It's good idea, I think.
Yeah. So this, I mean, it is explained in little bits throughout the book, but it could easily get lost in the details.
Part of town.
Yeah.
Over the river and through the woods.
Right. So Abu Dar is a coastal city built around a river that comes out to the ocean. The east side is the older half of the city that was built first and is now the rundown and mostly occupied by the lower class. This is called the Rahad. It's considered to be the more dangerous half of this city where women can murder their husbands for any reason without risk of punishment. So you take that for what you
know. That puts it in perspective.
Rihanna is confused as to who Matt is.
Who is this person? Why is he interrupting us?
Right. She's like, so is this your warder? Like, and Elaine's just like, oh, Light, no, Brigitte is. And yeah, all the kinswomen are like, what? But Elaine doesn't even seem to think about it and being weird anymore. Elaine then asks a question that's been on her mind since meeting Rihanna. And Rihanna explansers. She explansers. Rihanna explansers.
Drugs are a heck of a drug, man.
Rihanna answers explaining that she's almost 412 years old, and Marililla faints dead away at hearing this. And so, yes, we go to chapter 32, Sealed to the Flame, which is a skim. And it's not a bad read at all. It's it's a little... Like a lot of these chapters,
it's talky, a bit of a talkier.
Yeah. So Elida is having this really lovely dream about what's going to happen when she has Rand in hand.
Oh, it's so nice when we have dream sequences. They're always so informative.
Yes. And both he and all the leaders of the Rebel Aes Sedai are sitting in front of her. They're shielded, and Egwene falls in front of Elida and begs not to be still, just begs. Elida then makes her take an oath on the oath rod to obey the Amerlin seat, and Egwene and all the other women beg to take that oath. And that's when Alviarn wakes her up to deliver her the news about the events at Dumai's Wells.
Right.
So this, of course, yes, is another situation where a character is learning information we already know.
Always delightful.
The reason why I rate it a skim and not a skip is the fact that it's at least a little satisfying watching Elida panic when she realizes how screwed she is.
How completely oblivious she is to the truth of what's actually happening in the world. Yes.
And also what happens next is important. So Kuvarla, the highest sitting sister remaining from Rand's would-be captors, finishes explaining about Aiel wise ones and men who can channel, and Elida tells her to take all the remaining Aes Sedai who were part of the plan to capture Rand and leave town and just hide. After Kuvarla leaves, Alviarn finally makes her play and says that she'll tell the rest of the tower about this failure if Elida doesn't do exactly what she says. Mm-hmm. And Elida realizes that it's best to go along with Alviarn for the time being. So Alviarn then makes her demands. First, she wants the tower guards increased, and then gives order for 2 Aes Sedai, specific Aes Sedai, to have their rooms searched and for them to be punished, while 3 others are to be rewarded. And they all have names, of course, but I'm not going to bother you.
No one knows or cares. Yep.
Right. It's unclear what Alviarn's purposes are with these, but we can guess it's got some Black Aja-esque motives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Elida even sort of chin stroking,
right.
What's up with this?
Yeah, there must be some plan here. And because she's not a total moron. But after Elida hesitantly says she'll do as she's told, Alviarn then leaves, and Elida begins scheming about how to get out of this mess. Mm-hmm. After all, her earlier foretelling assured her of her own eventual triumph. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Could there be another way of interpreting that? I don't know.
Neither does Elida.
We then briefly swap to Alviarin, leaving Elida's quarters. We don't get any new information here since we already know she's Black Aja and working for Masana. She does muse about one day being Amerlin herself, maybe. We then jump to Ciane, Heriman,
And Flareon.
Yeah. Ciane Heriman's perspective. Ah, yes, Ciane Heriman. I've certainly been frustrated that we haven't heard her thoughts on what's happening, especially since we've never met her before now.
Or ever again.
Ciane, we're gonna get a little bit of her. We're gonna get a little bit more of her. That's why I actually highlighted this section a little bit, because she is forgettable. She's another one of those dozen randomized to die.
Her.
Exactly. You could easily lose her in the shuffle, and understandably. There's not a ton to make her stand out in this moment, and her name sounds exactly the same as at least a dozen other Aes Sedai that you've already met and forgotten about.
And or Pokemon.
Right. But I do want to pause, as I often do, and encourage you to take note of her just a little bit, because she's going to play a small but significant role over the next couple of books.
Note taken, because I had forgotten her and it's still kind of hazy on her a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I forgot about her completely. And so, but when I was reading through this, I was like, who is this? And so I looked her up on the wiki and read her entry. She's not a throwaway character. She actually exists beyond this scene.
Shocking.
So Ciane is a sitter for the Green Aja, and we find out from her that the two women Alviarin just commanded to be punished were also Green Aja, because this apparently is taking place after that punishment has already happened. So we also find out that Ciane wasn't really in support of Elida being raised Amerlin.
Right.
But she was the only sitter who didn't stand for Elida, who still stayed in the tower. So Elida finally gets to the point when after she kind of does her vague, like ominous, almost threatening kind of asking questions, she says that she wants Ciane to help her root out traitors in the tower. And in an unusual fit of wisdom, Elida decides to trust Ciane, specifically because she didn't stand for her.
Right. Yeah, and I get that.
She says this is all sealed to the flame, so she shouldn't tell anybody. So after Elida leaves, Ciane deduces that the Amerlin must be worried about the Black Aja, which, I mean, she kind of is, but also that's not specifically what Elida has in mind. It's, I mean, barking up the right tree, I guess. So she immediately breaks her oath to seal it to the flame, to keep it quiet.
Buddy.
And she goes to her friend Pavara, who's actually a member of the Red Aja, and though Ciane thinks that she could have easily been green.
At this point, we all throw up our hands and say, "Oh my goodness, who the heck cares?"
Right? Yeah, and that's why I'm actually like continuing with this, because otherwise I would have called this a skip.
Yes.
But these are characters that continue on for the rest of the series.
This does not bode well for the rest of this reread.
So basically, here's Pavara. You will probably forget her.
Yeah.
But try not to. That's all I have to say about that.
It's like, okay, I get it. Like, we want to see what's actually going on in the White Tower because we didn't have anybody there. But man, we don't need any more perspective, like normal, like recurring people. Even if they're like slightly recurring, like just enough, man, enough.
I don't disagree. I will say Pavara especially ends up being a more interesting character later on, and and once you get to that point, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, okay,
yeah.
I don't want to.
No, you're good.
More or less, lest I be accused of spoiling something. Chapter 33, A Bath, which I rate as a skim. And
sounds exciting.
Yeah.
You're selling me with a title.
Right. And then the next one is a walk in the park, and then the next one is
cutting
brushing
my toenails,
my teeth, and just things you do every day. So Rand is being moody after sending Perrin away. He's alone in his chambers, and we find out that he has access keys to both Chode and Khal. If you forgot about what that is, it's the giant ter'angreal that gives the user access to just a ridiculous amount of power. Lanfear at one point said that Rand could challenge the creator himself with it. And Rand has the access key to both the male half, the reciprocal part of which is near Kyrian, and the female half, which is on the island of Tremalking. That I don't know if we actually ever visit Tremalking. We just hear about it. It's there. So Rand is like considering seizing the access key because he's like all moody and stuff, but he doesn't, because this is the slog.
Right. Yeah. It's like, dude, I mean, just at one time, I mean, do that one time and like you can solve yourself some problems.
And then we're treated to a list of all the bad dreams that Rand has had lately.
Man, does anyone else just literally skip these? Like, I see a dream sequence, I skip till I see dialogue that is not in the dream sequence and or like a scene jump. Like, I just don't even care.
You're not really missing much.
No.
A lot of it is recapping. And by the way, I don't know if we touched on this, if the whole sending Perrin away thing, their argument was a fake argument.
Yes. Yeah, maybe we didn't emphasize that enough.
But Perrin chose to make it the argument about the Aes Sedai, which Rand is kind of musing about. Why did he have to pick that? That's bumming me out now.
And I mean, Rand did like throw him across the Grand Hall with the power. So I mean, like, maybe it was a fake argument, but that would have broken half of the bones in my body. I think.
Yeah. So
we were just joshing.
Right. Or yoshing. Get it? Get it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So finally, Min walks in and starts happily talking about this festival coming up and whether she should get a dress. And Rand apologizes for raping her.
Right.
What?
Right.
Wait.
Did we miss this? Like, dude, what? Are you taking drugs? Like, I know you're going a little crazy, but
I think Rand read all the previous chapters and went and got himself confused with one of the other characters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm guessing that Jordan intended this as a juxtaposition to the other scenes.
Sure. Ham-fisted as usual with this sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's like, here's a guy that's so noble that he apologizes for consensual intimacy versus Tylan, who knows full well what she's doing and doesn't care.
Right. Pulls a knife.
Right. Anyway, Min is actually angry at this.
Like, no, that is not what happened.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, sure. I mean, anyone would be like, no, you can't apologize for doing that when you didn't. Like,
right. And plus, it kind of removes agency from her, like as if she had nothing to do with it.
Right.
So, she says, the way I remember it is I was the one taking your shirt off. So, and she says that she wouldn't have lost her V card to someone unless she was serious about it.
Sure.
So Rand is confused and thinks about how easy Perrin has it with such a smiling and gentle wife and a serene marriage.
Oh, Matt, how good Matt is with women. Right?
Yes, it's just funny how the grass is always greener. Min's like, and by the way, you need a bath.
Right.
And Rand's like, I'm going to send you away so you'll be safe. Like
she says, no.
Yeah, like any 15-year-old stalking Harry Styles, Min is so in love with Rand that she could murder him for suggesting such nonsense.
Harry Styles on the cover of Vogue the other day in a dress. I think that.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that stirred up. There was a tweet about it where somebody said the feminizing of men, and that caused some controversy because it's like, hey, men should be able to wear dresses, and I'm like, well, I mean, maybe they should be, but also we should be able to make fun of them if they do. I mean, it's just.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It'd be different if he was like coming out as trans or something, and
right.
But no, he's just a dude just wearing a dress. I mean,
yeah.
You listeners, please feel free to weigh in on this. I would actually be interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, didn't know we were going to go that way, did you?
But we occasionally take a right turn or left turn. I don't know.
And so they argue for a while. Rand lets slip that he loves her and then adds that he also loves Avienda and Elaine. Min says, yeah, I love you too, and so do the other for some reason. And, even though it's completely inconsistent with every other character trait that I've displayed in this scene, I'm okay with that.
Right, yeah. You can tell she isn't really, but she's like, oh, the pattern is just a jerk.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, after Min says she's staying and that's it, she tells Rand that she's had a vision of him and another man merging, and that one of them dies and she doesn't know which one. And she's like crying, and Rand is happy to hear this, assuming that the other man is Lews Therin, meaning that, first of all, he's not crazy, that there is another man.
You know, it just occurs to me, this literally doesn't get resolved until the entire series is over.
Yeah, basically.
Isn't that insane? Like, this is this whole conversation. You think, oh, maybe it'll come up again in a few chapters. No, we're gonna have to wait. I don't know how many books are left. However many books are left.
Right. Yes.
Anyway.
This is kind of interesting. So so he's saying, you know, this is good news because it means I'm not crazy, and at least one of them will survive. And at that point, he's like, he doesn't even care if it's him or if it's Lews Therin. He's like, you know, whatever. Once again,
and let me just pause here. I don't think what I just said was a spoiler, because I think it's pretty clear to the reader that Rand is a bit deluding himself, and just because Lews Therin is not saying anything doesn't mean he's gone. Like, that's like, I think it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear to me, and again, having not read the other books in so long, that this is just wishful thinking on his part. You know,
right?
Like, that, you know, that like, okay, sure, just because you haven't heard anything from him for a while, it doesn't mean he's gone and you've merged and you're done. You're okay. This is just his attempt to think, okay, oh, thank goodness I'm not crazy. You know,
right?
Like, that's how I feel about it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you there. I mean, we're not giving anything away. We're just saying you'll hear more about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So once again, Min says, hey, you really do need a bath. And then she lets the maidens in to bathe him, basically. Then we're on to chapter 34, Ta'Viren, which is another read. Rand takes an entourage of Aes Sedai, Ashaman, Aiel, Dobrain, and Min, and once again, a partridge in a pear tree, to visit the sea folk. The horse he'd ridden back from Dumai's Wells is brought to him. It's a regal animal called Tai'Shar, which means Lord of Glory in the old tongue. And apparently the horse used to belong to Karuna. Rand's like, it's mine now. No, he's like, I'll pay her for it, and I'll pay her really well, so she won't be upset. And Min
those
is
2 horses more than the others. Like, Perrin has 2 horses. I think Matt generally just has Pips the whole time.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Rand's the one that kind of goes through them.
Yeah, but he decides this is an appropriate horse for the Dragon Reborn. At the same time, Min is riding a horse which she comments that she likes, which also belonged to an unnamed Aes Sedai. An unnamed Aes Sedai, mark it down. It doesn't actually list. They could have said, and this one belongs to
RJ, why couldn't you have done that more? Dude, him and his like dartboard of names that he just like spin. I'm picturing like an inner, a middle, and an outer, like Wheel of Fortune, like, you know, maybe first name, last name, mess with some syllables. I don't know. Maybe he wrote some Python to like generate names. Probably not.
There you go. Yes. So Rand's like, well, you can keep that horse and I will pay for it also. Right. They head to the sea folk ship, rowing out to it, and then Rand makes a bridge from Sidene up to the sea folk ship, followed by the Ashaman and the Aes Sedai, who all do the same. So this is a fun interaction, and I'm not going to get into all the details here because I've already called it a read, but as the sea folk are trying to wheel and deal with Rand, they find that his effects as a Ta'Viren are frustratingly strong on them.
Yep.
And they keep giving things away that make bargaining more and more difficult.
Like, you see they're like throwing a hand over their mouth, like, oh, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, but it reminds me of the scenes in Wonder Woman when Chris Pine grabs the lasso of truth, and he's like, you know, I promise you we'll do this. We're probably going to die. It's a terrible idea. Oh,
how are they going to bring him back in the second movie? I don't understand. I don't understand. There's going to be some time travel nonsense or something. I don't know.
I guess we're all going to find out.
Yeah, on HBO Max or whatever.
Yeah, when we all do the free trial to HBO Max. So
right. Yeah, I hope they're not going to pull the Mulan thing and make you pay $30 or whatever.
Yeah. So
this is all very much on topic for Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
I want Chris Pine to be in the Wheel Time show. That's my reasoning.
So Rand chooses two of his Aes Sedai, as well as Deshiva and Min, to accompany him to the small cabin to make a bargain. And there's kind of a funny image here where Rand is too tall for the cabin.
Right.
And he has to sit at this table where the chair is fixed to the floor because it's a ship. So you don't want chairs rolling around. So he has to use the side of the chair swings out for you to sit in, and he has trouble figuring out how to do that. And then when he sits in, his knees touch the table and he's like all crunched up. And later when he gets up, he actually can't get the armrest to swing out. Yeah, so he just yanks it off.
Right. Dude is having some PTSD to the chest.
Right.
Pretty clearly.
Rand gives his demands and also makes the Aes Sedai come to his side when he calls to show how they are under his command. So again, there are other details here. I'm not including it because it's worth reading. So go read it. Yeah. Chapter 35, Into the Woods. I rated this one a skim. Into the woods we have to go to do some unclear things, I know. Into the woods, but even so, we have to make the journey.
Yeah.
We're staying with Rand's party, but hopping to Min's perspective. She muses about a vision that she didn't tell Rand about because it won't do any good, right?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting approach. I mean, we've certainly had plenty of Min perspectives. We haven't had a Min perspective with lots of interaction with Rand at a time when there's some exciting stuff happening like this.
Right.
So that's, it's kind of, usually when we have either a boss fight or a mini boss or a sudden Trolloc attack, whatever it might be, we're in Rand's perspective. And so we see him doing all kinds of cool stuff, but it's kind of cool. It's nice to have it not be Rand's perspective for once, or one of the other Ta'Veren, or someone, or a general power user.
Right.
Force sensitive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I don't know. I like that as a change of pace.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Well, and it helps keep it fresh. And because we're sticking with Rand for a long time.
Yes, we are. This is
Yeah, it's like 4 chapters in a row. So she talks about this vision she's had where she understands it to mean that Moraine will be an important part of Rand's success against the Shadow, but she doesn't see any point in saying anything about it since Moraine's dead. So she's like, well, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. So Rand decides that he wants to go see about this group of rebel nobles who have been camping outside of Kyrian. Maybe
that was totally fair. It could have been Camelin. It's definitely one of the two.
It is Kyrian, but as I was reading this, I wrote down in my notes, I was like Kyrian, and then I paused and I was like, is it Kyrian?
Right.
And
check your notes.
Yes, it definitely is. Anyway, he opens a gateway to somewhere in the woods, and he and Min step through. Caroline Damodred rides up immediately, and thank goodness for some coincidental plot convenience, because I'm about done with spending half a chapter thinking about how much life sucks.
Yes.
Which doesn't bode well for the next book, because that's basically all Path of Daggers is.
Yeah, that's maybe the sloggiest of the slog. I don't know.
It may be, yes. Bad. It is. It's pretty bad. So Caroline rides up and immediately is like, hey, look, it's Rand, the Dragon Reborn. Then Darlin Cisnera rides up. Oh, my darling, oh, my darling, oh, my darling Cisnera. He doesn't know Rand.
He's like, who's this dude?
Yeah. and it's, so for reasons I don't totally understand, instead of giving Rand up, Caroline decides to tell
my cousin.
Right.
Yeah.
And named Tomas, who has come to visit. And Darlin explains that he's hanging around with Caroline in hopes that he'll wear her down until she finally decides to settle for him. A maneuver all the girls I've ever had a crush on like to call the will. Okay, well, hope it works better for you, darling. They ride over to the camp. You got a whole bunch of Kyrian and losers here. Yeah. A few surprise Aes Sedai, Podon Fane, and Podon Fane.
Oh dear,
man, this guy gets around.
How does he not immediately jump at Rand?
Right. I feel like Fane is to the Wheel of Time confabs as the pineapple is to episodes of Psych.
Sure. I was thinking of Where's Waldo. Yep. Demonic
Yeah,
Where's Waldo.
it's like just somewhere, he's there. And so, if it were me, if I were Rand, I would just walk across, just kill him right there.
Yeah, balefire that dude. Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason to keep him alive at this point.
I mean, it's like he's just like being courteous to Caroline, like, well, we're just gonna pretend like everything is okay
Right.
here.
Yeah. And I mean, he's nothing but trouble, and Rand basically knows it.
Yeah.
But instead of killing him, he just decides to do what we all do when we're confronted with an inconvenient problem. We ignore it.
Yeah.
And just hopes it goes away.
Right.
Also, Cadsuane is there for some reason, and she plays along with Rand's ruse, though she seems unhappy that he's there. Maybe Cadsuane is kind of running her own hustle.
And she's generally not happy when he does things like
that it kind of is Cadsuane's MO. She's like, you're doing stuff again, aren't you? You can't be doing stuff. So Min also randomly points to one of the guys there named David Hanlon, who she tells Caroline not to trust him because he is really, 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 really bad dude. So
yeah,
we don't really talk about him too much other than to hear how just awful
he is.
He is, and he's going to be later. And Min even kind of makes the point. And by the way, you can't really do anything about it because if I see it, it's going to happen. So you can stay away from him, maybe.
Right. That's not what Rand does.
Well, finally, there's this guy named Torum Rioton.
Right, Torum.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's like, here's, David Hanlon. He's the worst dude ever. You should steer clear of him. So we're thinking, okay, so yeah, that's going to be the conflict.
Right,
no,
right.
Here comes Torum Rioton. What's special about Torum Rioton, you may ask? Well, he's in this chapter. So he also thinks that he will eventually convince Caroline to marry him. But unlike Darlin, Torum, he's a jerk.
He's kind of creepy about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so I think I thought that the first guy was the one that was the guy we're talking about.
Exactly.
Now.
Exactly.
Totally
right.
Forgot. I just read this like a week or two ago, and I totally forgot all that.
No. Yeah. It's so funny to me because Min points over and she's like, "Hey, that guy over there. Yeah, you should stay away from him. He's going to be like killing and raping and everything." And then everybody's like, cool. So, what's up, Torum? All right. Well, file that one way, I guess.
Yep.
So he and Rand decide to have a sparring session with
why not?
Yes, practice swords. Yes. So it's cool when Rand stops to get together to have a big sparring session. But when I do it, it's, quote, ruining my cousin's wedding. Chapter 36. Oh, some dumb guy. Chapter 36, Blades. I called this one a skim also. You could be a read.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And in fact, I'll call this one a read. So we move from Min's perspective to Rand's perspective for this chapter. Rand and Torum fight, and Rand doesn't have that hard of a time with Torum, despite the man being a blade master. It turns out Rand is just basically a blade master at this point.
Right. He's taken out a couple of them. He's got a couple merit badges for killing blade masters.
Right. So after they've been fighting for a while, the tent they're under is snatched away, and they see that they're surrounded by fog.
A bubble of evil!
Yes. They say, oh, this is a bubble of evil. I have heard some fans speculate that it might actually have been caused by Panan Fane, though.
Oh, okay.
Because it's from...
Like Rand's maybe, kind of thing.
Yeah, could and it's from Rand's perspective, so immediately he would be like, "Hey, it's a bubble of evil," but like we could be like, you know what, it could easily be Fane.
Sure. So it would be like not something he's done before from his perspective, like when we've written his perspective, but he's also done some stuff. You're like, what? How did you do that? So
right,
yeah, sure, why not? We don't really know what his weird powers are.
Yeah. So Torum, the jerk that he is, uses this opportunity to get a cheap blow to Rand's side. But then he sees that one of the Red Sisters, there was a Red Sister or two among the Aes Sedai. Who are the names? Who knows? Who cares? They're the red shirts in this case because she gets snatched away into the fog. And then Torum decides it would probably be best to make like two hippies and split this joint.
Nice.
But not before Rand uses balefire to defend a fleeing woman, revealing his identity to Torum.
Wayne's like, dang it!
Yeah, she slaps him. I love that. Whap! And don't ever use balefire.
Right.
Which I'm sure he's going to follow that from here on out.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
No way he'd immediately go do it.
So Padan Fain comes out of nowhere and slashes Rand with his ruby-hilted dagger. I wonder if when Jordan wrote about the ruby-hilted dagger in the first book, if he intended for it to become this long-running thing, because not many other objects that we see in the first book have made it that far.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like Tam's sword that I thought was going to be this thing that was going to last throughout.
Swords, yeah.
Right. It just gets melted or whatever.
Rand's gone through a whole bunch of swords.
Right. And but the stupid dagger just keeps showing up. So yeah, Fain slashes Rand,
Stupid Padan Fain keeps showing up too.
Right, yeah. Yeah. He's like a bad pen. Fain slashes Rand right in his never healing wound and then disappears.
Yep.
And then Samitsu heals him. Who is Samitsu?
This is just like part of Cat Swain's retinue.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's the thing about Samitsu. She is also in this chapter.
Right. She's in more chapters too.
Oh, you wanted more than that? Well, she's Yellow Aja, and did I mention she's in this chapter? So yeah, she does show up later. And Torum does at some point too. So Rand is out of commission, but Darlin picks him up and he's like, okay, where do you want me to put this guy? And the Aes Sedai carve a path through the fog, and all the characters we care about and a few that we don't all manage to escape.
Right.
So they take Rand back to the Sun Palace, where all his channeling retinue surround him, and Dahmer Flynn, who's an Ashaman who has some healing talents, tries to heal the new wound. And he explains that the new wound and the old wound
fighting each other.
Yeah, they're two different kinds of evil, and he actually sets them up to kind of fight each other, so they won't bother Rand as much.
He seals it off, seals the fighting off together or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Samitsu, being Yellow Aja, is like, okay, so you're gonna have
tell
to
me exactly what you did.
Right. Like point me to a YouTube tutorial on that or something.
Right. I like that.
So, yes, and that is the conclusion of that chapter, and that brings us to the conclusion of this episode.
Yeah, man, a lot happened. Good stuff.
Yeah, it did. I had one little spoilery thing.
Aha. Well, if you are listening and you would not like to be spoiled by anything that happens after A Crown of Swords, or even after this section of A Crown of Swords, hang up, check back in with us next episode, and we'll talk to you later. So we'll continue.
Yeah. So, we started talking about this, the merging of the two men.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I remember when I first read this, I, like Rand, assumed that it was referring to him and Luz Theron somehow.
Right. But after finishing the whole series, obviously him and Moradin, and Moradin dies, and he has his ugly face.
Right. Exactly. And it's kind of an odd thing because I remember when upon first finishing the book, I was that part, I was satisfied. I was happy at the end.
Yeah. The fact that, it builds up, you expect Rand to die. Oh, wait, no, he's sort of dead, but not really. He's still alive in Moradin's body.
Right. But it's funny because I was not remembering this moment at all. And so I didn't see it as being set up. And so it felt a little like, okay,
right. No, that's fair. I didn't even think about it myself when I read it until you recounted it. Oh yeah, that's what it's talking about. Definitely. It's just weird that they're not going to get to that for so long. It's like
Right.
no one is going to remember that men said this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe we'll see as we continue with this reread. But to me, it's kind of an important thing that this was foretold to set it up.
Because I certainly didn't see it coming. I mean, at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I kind of wish that they'd gotten brought up a little bit more from here on.
Sure. Yeah.
As like a reminder, so that when it does happen, you're like, oh,
yeah, right. Not in the end of book 7 and never mentioned again until it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So whereas when Elida has her foretelling in this book, where she foresees that the Amerlin seat is going to,
she doesn't shut up about it. Yeah.
Right. And so when it ends up being Egwene later on,
it's like, well, that was correct foretelling, not about you.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of remember, like, yeah, okay, this makes sense, versus like this little thing just happens in this one chapter that is otherwise about Min and Rand's relationship, and it's kind of easy to
it's like, okay, man, whatever, thanks for telling us that, like.
Yeah, anyway, so
good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are finished with this section of slogginess, and next episode we're gonna finish this book up, which is kind of cool. We're working our way through this log. So, hey, if you have any questions for us, please reach out. You can catch us on any of the socials at Podcast TSM. We have a website, tsmpodcast.com. We have a survey there. Feel free to fill it out. Let us know what you think about the show. If you have any thoughts, kind or interesting, we'll read them on there and we'll mention them. Leave us a review, all the places you get your podcasts. That's always helpful. And until next time, Tai'Shar Manetheren.